So before we talk too much about, because we're going to kind of get there in a second,
Yeah.
Web 2, you've mentioned a couple of times. I worked in tech. I know some stuff, but answer me this, Florcy. What do you mean there's more than one web? I've been using web all the time. It all seems like one web. So what was the change when Web 2 happened, and how were you involved?
So I'll start with Web one. So let's define what it is first, and then I'll tell you my journey from my lens as a Black woman in the '80s as growing up. So Web one was, write only, right? There was just information that was written. You could just read it. There was no
Okay.
interaction. Web two, which was in the like '70s to about even the '80s, I think that they started IBM and the big supercomputers in one room. It's just information you can log on and you can read it. Then, Web 2 was more of, this interaction with information,
So
right?
like message boards when it first started, and then moved on to DMs, social, etc.
It was chat, everyone AOL, that was it, but you could read and now you could write. And so there was back and forth and sharing of information. And part of that Web 2, that 7 years of time that happened before the tech bubble burst, there was like, okay, we can share information, but can we share product? Can we share services? And that was when the emergence of social media came, e-commerce websites came, and businesses says, oh, I could have a presence here, a global presence, and really touch the world. So World Wide Web, right? And so so that was Web 2. And then Web 3 is where we're at the precipice. We are at the beginning. We are literally day 2. Day 1, we're at day 2 right now. And this journey is going to take about 7 years for it to settle in. I've been on this. It's interesting that the journey, how it is timed. So what has been my experience in the space? I grew up in New York City. I had an opportunity in the late '90s to learn about computers. Went to college, and that's when I really like. I didn't have a laptop when I went to school. I had a computer room. That's where I take my papers, right? I could search some information, but it was still old school. You had to go to the library.
Yeah, yeah,
Those
yeah.
things were necessary. And so, from an educational standpoint, I really did somewhat grow up as a young child in the old world, I could say. But the businesswoman, I grew up as a digital native.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
so I graduated, knew the internet worked. There at the time, Palm. You still didn't have smartphones then,
No.
which is early 2000s. Smartphones were not a thing yet. You could just do text messaging. And I'm just contextualizing it because people don't realize this was just 10 years ago, and look at where we are now. Okay, so fast forward a bit. So I opened my gallery in 2007 at the height of the recession. I was really lucky and blessed to have a community that wrapped around me and believed in my vision. And so I did really well. I was located in Philadelphia on Gallery Row, and I was able to do the work that I wanted to do and share the messages, but I was using Facebook to promote events and social media, get the word out, and I had a website. It was an amazing time. But my website didn't make any money. Everyone would come into the gallery because the experience was amazing. It was rich, right? You had art, you had music, you had wine, you had rich conversations, right? And so I wasn't able to monetize and really grow the business online. And so after 7 years, 5 years, everyone said, "You've made it, Florcy." And I said, "I don't know." I was young at the time. So I was like 30. And I'm like, how does this business work 30 years from now? And I had the foresight to realize I don't see the vision of how this is going to grow and be sustainable.
Right.
And so at the 5 year mark, when everyone was screaming, "You made it, you got it, you're a business, you're gonna grow, you have staying power," I was just like, yeah, I gotta think about something different. And this is when at the time I actually decided to go to business school. And I got a dual master's. I went to the Johns Hopkins University and got a dual master's in design thinking, went to Maryland Institute College of Art, and which is really the process of using design to solve complex problems. And then I got an MBA, concentration in information systems and marketing. Okay, I was like, I may not come back to school again, so let me just do it all right now.
I was going to say, some people go back to school. You went back to school. Like,
I
oh my
went back to
God.
school and I was like a complete nerd about it. And I really loved the idea of what I wanted to do, two things. What I wanted to do, and I will promise I will fast forward. What I wanted to do, one was reimagine how I could create the art gallery, the in art gallery experience online. So that was my thesis in my brain at the time, or in my mind. And then the second thing is, how do I take information and really share it in a creative way, right? And the information was art, and the messaging, the stories of that, of these people, these countries, their lives. How can I use that to kind of share? Because education was the core piece of how I led my business: education awareness, relationship management, sold $1 million. That was it, right? No one, how did you do it? That was it. It was a shiny education top of funnel. That's it. um, Graduated, realized how expensive an MBA was, and was like, yeah, I think I need to go get a job and kind of figure this out before going back to the arts. And so I flipped it on its head. And I actually took my creativity of solving problems, building communities, into the tech space. And that's where I joined Dell Technologies. I was in one of their leadership development programs, and I was working on in services. Really was like after the sale, post sale, how do we add value to the customer? How do we reduce our costs, grow our profits and revenue? And I worked across with executive leadership across different areas of service functions, doing strategic initiatives. Was then tapped to lead a team of engineers to do their customer service. And really, my team would go in remotely. Companies would go boom. My team goes in, get them running back up. And it was an amazing opportunity, which led into product. But I'll stop there.
Oh, it's what was your experience within the tech space? Because I worked actually doing a very, very similar kind of job for you, but as you were, but whereas Dell were B2C, they weren't part of the channel as it's known everywhere else. I worked in the channel and worked for a reseller, so I would do the same job but across a multitude of kind of products. And what was the tech space? Because I guess we're talking 2000, somewhere around there.
Yeah. So no, it's actually it's 5 years ago, 4 years ago. Yeah.
Wow, that's been a big
I
5 years, huh?
Yeah, I started my career in the arts as an entrepreneur. People usually go and work in corporate and then say, "Yeah, I want to do this. I want to live my dream." And I'm like, "No, I did it when I was young and didn't have anything just for bills." And then I pivoted into corporate when I was a little bit later in age. Um, so a couple things. I joined EMC, which was one of the leading infrastructure companies, and it was a B2B company. And Dell saw the opportunity and wanted to do end-to-end technology from infrastructure to the edge, which was, laptop applications and computers and things of that nature. Dell Technologies is still one of the leading companies that leads technology from end to end. We can do your data centers to your on-prem, telecom and your computers. So we are B2B and B2C, but we're recognized for our B2C. So the question is, what was it like in the tech sector, 5 years ago? It's the same. It's the same in the sense of, as a Black woman, there are one first. Let me say the good. The good is that first, there are some companies, legacy companies, that understand and really value relationships. They value intelligence. They value um, um, chutzpah, really gritty, getting to it, get the work done, and they will allow you to lead, right? Uh, However, sometimes it's hard to get into those spaces because it's very relationship driven. And I had an amazing opportunity to go into this program through the National Black MBA and went to this conference, and that's how I met EMC. And I was selected. They saw I wasn't a pattern match fit because yes, I had went to Johns Hopkins, but I didn't have any tech experience. This
No.
is my first tech job. I had run my business, and they said, "We think you have something. We're going to give you a chance," right? And I did have skill sets to bring, but in the traditional, as we look at what these new tech companies look like, I probably wouldn't have had an opportunity or a chance.
Sure.
And so that is the good part of that. and like I said, this pattern matching is that I was the only one in the room sometimes, many times, as a Black woman and as a woman.
And as a woman as well, right? That's got to be so much.
Yeah. But, I, it's interesting, I didn't feel the negativity of it, right? If anything, I was I had opportunity because of the work that I was able to produce. And I say that, and I'm so sorry for saying this online and to such a public audience to say that, yeah, I didn't get my way sometimes, but I really did not experience. I was in a culture where it was merit based.
Amazing.
There was no, I wasn't in that where there's politics and toxicity. It was like merit based. We're a huge company. There's tons of work to go around. You can move. And if you don't like your leader in 18 months, you can move to another role. Right. So
Amazing.
that was the
Amazing.
and so as I think about where I'm at now, I took the opportunity to work at Netflix, which has a very different culture, very modern startup company. And as I think about some of these newer companies, the Googles, the Apples that are 10 years old, not 30, 40 years old,
It's
right?
incredible, right?
Yeah. And I just actually read a book, Gary Vanderchuk, Crushing It, and his 12 and a half. And it talks about leadership. Oh, it's amazing. You have to read it. I'll gift you it. I'll get you
Crushing It is fantastic. I've read that a couple of times, but I haven't read 12 and a half, so that sounds great.
12 and a half is his newest book, and it's amazing. It's talking about the core principles to being a great leader, and it's around like, empathy, which is his half, or courageous empathy, and a whole other like transparency, respect.
No, it's like a 12-step program to leadership as opposed to getting sober.
That part. And he has these stories around them. And part of what we hear is that, what we know about some of these traditional companies, they're just very cutthroat because it's moving really fast. You're expected to just work. It's not a lot of collaboration, and it's a lot of, excuse me if I'm gonna say, like, if your shit is shit, they're gonna tell you it's shitty.
Because we haven't got time, we're trying to do something, but we're
Yeah.
trying to grow at this exponential rate. If you ain't hitting it, then there's the door.
Yeah. There's no learning curve, right? And there's sometimes no empathy. And if you think about the leaders that have had to lead and build in this time, sometimes it takes that culture in the beginning. But in the time that we are in now and what has happened in society, there needs to be a change when you're thinking about you're taking a product to market, you want to grow your market in a very global way that does not look like your back office. It needs and demands that it's reflective of the community. And so there is, so what the question is, what is the need now? The need
Yeah.
is for more diverse talent, not just in race, not just in gender. We're talking about age, you know, experience, how, what studies did they learn? Can we take a chemist and put them in, fashion design because they may know something about fabrics, right? And if they're passionate about it, will we give them an opportunity?
So
Um,
can we take an artist, as someone who loves art, and put them into a tech space to say like, well, this is how the design could be, and it doesn't have to be architectural, the cloud drawing and then the firewall drawing, and but actually like take that, because that is, and like you say, the diversity of idea as well as diversity of people, because that's what we're looking for when we, as business, when you're saying, we what are the benefits of diversity? It's the new ideas. If everyone just is the same and it's the same ideas, but like you say, that can be taking people from the unexpected places and outside of that, as you're saying, like the cultural fit of what you expect. Oh, they've got to have a tech degree and a thing and a thing and a thing. I love that.